Hey guys, I am ultimately trying to learn the full planche, but one of the milestones along the way is the tuck planche. I can now hold this for 20 seconds, so I thought I'd share with you what I've done in my training to get to this point. I learned frog stand and advanced frog stand relatively quickly, but the tuck planche was a much longer and less straightforward journey. It took me 5 months, but my training was very inconsistent, and from what I know now, I could have done it in half the time. I want to talk you through my monthly progress and which exercises I was trying, and then how I would set up my training if I had to do it all again. A few exercises that didn't feel like they were helping included going from a straddle into a tuck and starting from the advanced frog stand and removing one knee. Not everyone improves with the same exercises, and I think I was keeping the routine too long while seeing no progress. People were telling me to be patient, but I feel like a good exercise shows some form of improvement within 3 to 4 sessions, and this wasn't always the case. What did work for me was to copy the way that I built strength for the advanced frog stand. This was to pause just before taking my toes off the ground and hold that position. And I did the same for the tuck planche. I would hold that position for sets of 15 to 20 seconds, sometimes with only one foot on the floor. Within a week, I could hold what looked like a tuck planche, but there were several flaws in my technique, which meant holding this position wasn't going to help with the ultimate goal of full planche. The mistakes were not having much of a forward arm lean and having my hips too low. One of the best exercises I found across all of this is one that's aimed at strengthening your forward lean position, and that is called a pseudo planche push-up. You take a planche lean position with shoulders down and back, coming ahead of the wrists with the shoulders, and from that position you do push-ups. These place a huge strain on your arms. When I do them, I feel like my biceps are going to burst sometimes, so make sure you're fully warmed up before you try to do them. By December, I could hold a 12-second tucked planche, and one of the breakthroughs was in my rest periods. Before, I was using 1.5 to 2 minutes rest, and by extending that out to 2.5 to 3 minutes, I could accumulate much better time under tension, so I could manage reps at 8 to 10 seconds, whereas before I would drop off to around 5 or 6. I introduced 2 new coaching points. One was to get myself in a higher start position with my hips, and the other was thinking about actively pulling my knees into my chest. This is a good time to go through my ab exercises. These have remained constant throughout, and I'm happy with the ones that I've chosen. So the first of these is an L-sit. I have stubby arms, so I need either push-up bars or books to get me off the ground. More recently, I've been increasing the difficulty by using an object that I have to keep my feet above. Then a similar move, which is the tucked L-sit, and both of these I'd be doing for 3 to 4 sets of up to 30 seconds. Then a hollow body hold. The important part is having posterior pelvic tilt, scapula down, and holding this dish shape for around 30 seconds. By January, I was doing tuck planche pulses. This is something that was recommended on Instagram. You start from a tucked L-sit and then you transition into a tuck planche, holding briefly and then returning. When I was doing the tuck planche with the higher start position, I noticed my hips would eventually start dipping. By doing this move, I strengthen the muscle that allows me to raise my hips back up again, and in general, I feel a lot more control over my body position. February was my 4th month training the tuck planche, and at this point I was getting quite fed up. I was convinced that it was my abs being too weak that meant that I was gradually fading and not able to hold the position. I went looking at more online tutorials, and that's where I found the bent arm tuck planche. It's exactly as it sounds, and the first time I tried it I could hold for 15 seconds, the second time 20 seconds, so that made it clear my lower body wasn't the problem. In March I went off on a tangent and started learning the handstands, but having come back to tuck planche, it's clear for me what exercises were working. So let's start with training frequency. I didn't have set training days, which probably counted against me, but if there was some sort of balance element I had to work on, then I would train 3 times a week, and if it was more strength work, I would drop to 2 days a week. It was months before I took the warm-up seriously, but now I make sure to do some resistance band moves for the shoulders and 3 moves to warm up my wrists, which I got from Tom Merrick's channel. I believe he links to the shoulder warm-up I do, which is from a blog post by Emmett Lewis. If you're trying to learn this move right now, then I recommend you finish watching this video, obviously, and then go watch 5 to 10 more on the same topic. Find similarities in people's approach, make a list of all the exercises, and experiment with what works for you. Probably the biggest mistake I've made throughout all of this is to watch one popular video and assume that if I implemented the exact training program that they outlined, then I would make progress. Okay, so back to the exercises. If I'm training the tuck planche itself, that would go first in the training program while I'm freshest. Initially, that would be with the toes in contact with the ground and then eventually with toes off. I've seen people that get into this position from kneeling on the floor, but I prefer to have the knees tucked and then rock into position. If I was training twice a week, I would look to hold for about 80 or 90 seconds in total, but start with a volume you can handle and build from there. My other starting exercise was the bent arm tuck planche, because from the chest down, you're doing the same thing as the tuck planche, so it's good practice for the lower body. This would be up to 5 sets of 20 seconds. Next, I would train the lean element, because the ultimate goal is the full planche. I like a lean with raised feet because that's roughly the body position you'll be in eventually, and I varied this between 15 to 20 second endurance style holds and a more intense 3 to 5 second bursts where I'd try and get the biggest lean possible and then back out of it. This is where the pseudo planche push-ups come in. If you wait too long into the session, your arms are toast. You want quality reps with a big lean. I was doing between 5 and 8 reps and up to 5 sets, but more often just 2 or 3. When I lacked balance and control, I found the tuck planche pulses very helpful. You might need to prop your hands off the ground to give your feet space to swing underneath. Later on, I added an L-sit to the start, and then I tuck the legs, swing underneath, trying to keep the arms straight, and then come back. I would repeat 3 or 4 of these pulses in a single set and repeat for up to 5 sets. I finished with abs. My favorites, as I said, were an L-sit or tucked L-sit for sets of 30 seconds, and finally the hollow body hold. When I found consistency in my training, I was adding an extra 1 to 2 seconds on my tuck planche every week, and I started around 8 seconds. So what should have been under 3 months ended up taking me 5 months. And that's because I was jumping around doing different exercises that weren't working for me, and my training was very inconsistent. I've linked to my training journal below where you can see the exact sets and reps I did each day. The point is not to copy this because, as I said, I was picking lots of exercises that didn't work for me and my training was inconsistent. I've also linked to the warm-ups, the wrist and shoulder warm-ups that I mentioned earlier, as well as some other tutorials that I found useful. Thanks for watching.